Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Orange Crush podcast. I am Grayson Mann alongside David Hood. Guys, Clemson moves to 5 wins in a row. The season is really only getting started, David, as we move into later October, November. Clemson picks up a secured win on the road, 49-14 over Wake Forest. How we're going to structure this Aftermath podcast today is we're going to briefly touch on Wake Forest. We're going to touch into the national discussion surrounding Clemson's schedule and then talk about the reunion with Tony Elliott in Virginia. David, I'm going to throw it to you. Big thoughts on Wake Forest. Clemson gets hit in the mouth a little bit, but really puts together a convincing performance on the road.
Yeah, kind of like we wrote, it was a bit of a sleepy start for the Tigers. Then they get going second quarter, no points in the first quarter. Defense gives up a quick touchdown. Wake Forest is running that mesh. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, 566 total yards, 49 points. Probably could have been a lot more, but Dabo was more interested in running the football on that last drive, getting Keith Adams some carries, getting that offensive line, getting some backup, some time. That was really good to see. The defense came out, made that kind of adjustment there at the half, stopped that mesh, 5-man front, minus 11 yards for Wake in the third quarter. I think 48 in the fourth quarter. That's not a lot. That's pretty good. That's dominant. The offense doing what it could do. And, I think it's funny. People talk about this team not having an offensive identity. We've said it. This team has an offensive identity because you watch right now, Cade Klubnik is playing at an elite level, and this team has an identity. And now you see Garrett Riley's fingerprints all over this offense because you could watch the Wake Forest defenders yesterday. Now I've got to pick. Am I going to cover this guy or am I going to cover that guy? And then that just makes for easy throws for Klubnik, a lot of eye candy. Fun to watch right now. And, it all winds up. And Dave Clawson, the Wake Forest head coach, said it perfectly. We got beat by a better team and a better program. He knows that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that struck out to me was seeing this team face a little adversity early. It was a shaky first quarter by the bar that they've set from the last month or so of football. And I posted this on Twitter this morning that first third down throw that really got things going to Stellato, one of the best throws we've seen Cade make. And he's made some pretty good ones this year, rolling to the right side, just barely getting it over that Wake Forest linebacker's mitts and finding Stellato in a really secure spot there. And so I'm thinking, okay, you get punched in the mouth a little bit. You face a little adversity. I think Sweeney in the back of his mind is thinking, I really love seeing this. Maybe Clemson fans in the moment are freaking out about it, and we saw all of the emotions in about a 5-minute stretch where you go from down 7 to up 14 with complimentary turnovers playing a factor. But you're right, an elite level from Cade Klubnik, 21 total touchdowns in the last 5 games to 2 interceptions in his last 6 starts.
2 interceptions,
I want to say. So he's playing at a very not only elite level, but he's protecting the football as well. And you talk about Garrett Riley's offense. We're starting to see the jumbo package return, some of the old things from the championship teams of the past, and then the double pass to Antonio Williams, to Jake Brenningstool. It was a fun watch. It's become a very appetizing product for Clemson fans where the last 3 years have been a lot left to be desired, and they get the big win on the road.
They do, and I'm sorry, I have got stuff going on behind me because the Nikki's at a conference up in North Carolina, so there's a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old trying to get involved. That's okay, kids. But yeah,
we
I
here at the Orange Crush podcast.
Yeah, and I texted somebody this morning about Cade, and I said, no, a head coach. And I said, am I right? Am I wrong? Cade's playing at an elite level, and it was like elite with 3 exclamation points, which is something. So that's kind of what you see, man. You've got a quarterback who is really maturing and growing. And the great thing about that is he's got room to do more. He's got room to grow and get better. And that's probably what's exciting, is that, yeah, he's good right now, but he can be even better. And how many teams across the country? I'm watching games last night, and I'm watching Will Howard for Ohio State. That's a good quarterback. You're watching Dylan Gabriel for Oregon. That's a good quarterback. Nussmeier at LSU. Jackson Dart. Carson Beck threw a couple of picks yesterday. He's kind of been a little bit loose with the football at times. Cade's playing really well, and this team's going to have him play well as we get into, we've talked about this before. One game left in the month of October for the Tigers. One. And then a November to remember with 5 contests, 2 of those on the road.
Yeah, the slate truly begins. And just to put the final touches on Wake Forest, David, something that really struck out to me, that Bryant Wesco was out yesterday with an ankle injury. You had tweeted out, I think, that he was seen on campus with a boot. Thought to be standard procedure, but didn't make the travel roster. And you saw no drop off. And Wesco's been one of those points of emphasis with this new identity that they've thrown out. And Troy Stellato had a career day. Jake Brenningstool really showed up and showed out. Antonio Williams has been, I think, playing his best football in his Clemson career. He got off to a hot start his freshman year with DJ Uyunglele as his quarterback. So a lot of good things are coming together. We said at the beginning of the year that this team goes as far as Cade Klubnik can take them. And so far, that looks to be pretty good if 2 continues to perform the way he is. But let's shift to you mentioned the Clemson slate. One more game in October. That's going to be Tony Elliott in Virginia, and we'll talk about that. And we'll have Dabo tonight. We'll talk to him on Tuesday and Wednesday as well to preview his former offensive coordinator coming back. But David, only one ranked AP top 25 team in Pittsburgh is left on Clemson's schedule as a marquee matchup. And I'm putting that in quotes for our Spotify audience. Thank you for listening there as well. Where do you does that concern you at all? I think if you're a Clemson fan, you're thinking you probably have to be perfect for an at-large bid because of the Georgia loss. It feels like to me the committee may not be as forgiving if the Clemson Tigers are 10-2, if they have a loss to Miami, and the field is pretty impressive around them with teams like Alabama they're going to be facing. Georgia is going to be potentially an at-large team. Tennessee, we could keep going. Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. There's a lot of movement in the top 12, and if it comes down to it, strength of schedule may be a factor that hurts Clemson.
Oh, it definitely could. And that's something I sent another text today about that the schedule does concern me because they don't play anybody that's got much of a pulse left. Pittsburgh is undefeated. That could be game day. Hey, that would be fun, right? Virginia Tech is playing well. South Carolina played well against Alabama, but South Carolina's got 3 losses already. And they're liable to come into that game with 4 or 5. Who knows? Maybe 6. Excuse me. They've got to go to Oklahoma this weekend. They still have Vanderbilt in Florida. I mean, so who knows what they will be. And the schedule possibly, like if you're a Clemson fan, you go, man, this is garbage. This is why you went out of the ACC. You know, it doesn't get a whole lot better next year because you've got LSU coming to town. But next year it's Boston College and Duke and SMU and Syracuse and Louisville. And you kind of go, is LSU the marquee matchup for next year? Maybe it is because you've got Troy and Furman on the schedule as well. And, so what do? You just go out, you win the games that are in front of you, try to look impressive doing it. You know, Clemson's not going to get any points from anybody. If you go out and you beat Virginia by a field goal as time expires, you'll be happy. But it doesn't help. And, but Louisville's playing okay. They beat Virginia and Tony Elliott yesterday, got a late touchdown. But they've already lost twice. Man, Pittsburgh might be it. That might be the marquee matchup up there. But yeah, you do have to wonder. And you watch all of these great games, man. I'm sitting there watching Tennessee and Florida. Is Tennessee a top? We talked 2 weeks ago. Are they one of the best teams in the country? Now you've seen them. Now people have got them on tape, and you go, are they? They got beat by Arkansas. They got taken to the wire by a not very good Florida team at home. And you see all these teams, but the committee's not going to pay attention to that. It's going to be, all these great teams are beating up on each other. Look at this. And, you got Penn State playing out at USC and Ohio State and Oregon, and Clemson's got Wake Forest and Virginia.
The opportunity for Clemson to make a national statement feels like that was in week 1 against Georgia, and they fell flat on their face. So you have to, I feel, not necessarily, if this was the 4-team playoff, I think I'd be a lot more concerned about their chances in general, even if they won the ACC, just because of how it feels like the top 5 is pretty stacked and secure. Mm-hmm. Oregon goes out, and a team that I thought that wasn't as good as their ranking indicates goes out and makes a statement. And it's great about college football, David, is that your opinions can be flipped within the matter of 24 hours, where you think Clemson's a top 10 team, and if they go lose to Virginia, Not anymore. You have sort of the narratives change in an instant. And so for the Tigers, it's Virginia, it's Louisville. I think you and I both probably think those are secure wins just off of a talent standpoint, but you never know. We've learned this season that things can change on the drop of a hat. So for Clemson, I think it probably is ACC Championship or bust. I do think they'll end up in Charlotte just based on how their trajectory is going. But then Miami, a team that's been kind of all over the place this year, you might lose in the last second and be punished because of the record or the schedule, excuse me, that you possess. So it certainly is an issue and worthy of discussion.
And Miami's been fortunate. They've gotten some help from the officials in a couple of games, whether you think that was a touchdown against Virginia Tech or not. I do think that was targeting last week. Should have kept that Cal drive alive, but that wasn't what was called on the field, so that's where we stand. And so now this Clemson team starts to look at the rest of the season. Can they get guys healthy? Tyler Brown, I don't think he played yesterday. He was there. Never saw him grab a helmet. Wesco was out. That's the great thing about this offense is that he got playmakers who still aren't really out there playing or haven't played a lot. So, you're right. Trajectory can only get better. I thought Jake Brenningstool, that was his best game. Talk about him quick second. He is now 10 receptions away from tying the all-time tight end record at Clemson of 112, held by Brandon Ford, Jordan Leggett. If he gets 11 more, he's the all-time leader. First guy to ever have, multiple, 100-yard games in a season. He's just setting all kinds of tight end records. And, I thought that he's been plagued by some drops early in the season. Yesterday might have been his best game. So, yeah, this offense is starting to find itself a little bit. Cade's starting to feel comfortable with who he's throwing to. And if he gets those other guys back, it's a good omen for the rest of the season. And again, Virginia this weekend, then you have a week off and then 5 games in the month of November, 3 of them at home.
It's going to be a gauntlet, that road trip to Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh. Tough places to play historically for Clemson. Pittsburgh, they haven't fared too well in, and Eli Holstein looks to be a legit force. I think it's one of my rather colder takes as a TigerNet employee I think I did a piece in July about ranking their opponents, and I think I put Pittsburgh at the bottom of that schedule piece. So I may be burned on that one in the future. But David, let's turn the page quickly to Virginia and a reunion week for Dabo Swinney and Tony Elliott. Just tremendous amount of respect for Tony Elliott and sort of what he's had to embrace and deal with in the first couple years at his tenure at Virginia. Immense tragedy early on in his career there, but he's really responded, and this team looks like they play for him really well. They're starting to figure things out. They have a shot at a bowl game this year, and I think.
And this is a team that
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a team that really is fighting well, and I think they're starting to find their identity of what Tony Elliott wants this Virginia team to be. They can make a bowl game. That's a pretty good start, given all the circumstances he's had to deal with. So, ton of respect from me on my end, and I'm sure we'll hear a ton about it from Swinney as we talk to him this week.
It's a Virginia team that beat Richmond by scoring 34. They beat Wake by scoring, 31. They took it on the chin against Maryland. That's a pretty good team. Put up 43 on Coastal Carolina. Put up 24 in beating a tough Boston College team. Then lost yesterday against Louisville. So that young quarterback that they have, Calandria, he's interesting because you're going to live and die with him. He's going to make mistakes. He is. He's tough. I'm not real sure how good their running game is. I think their defense can give up some big plays. But Tony knows all about Clemson. The great thing is that the offense that Clemson is going to play, like I mentioned earlier, is not at all like the offense that Tony Elliott had when he was here. It's not that same deal. Garrett Riley has his fingerprints all over this one. And then, Tony's never really coached Cade because he was recruiting Cade, but Cade was not here. Cade came in his freshman year, and that was all Brandon Streeter, and Tony was up at Virginia. But a good homecoming weekend. We'll see how it goes. Should be beautiful weather. I can't wait.
It's going to be an exciting one, and we'll have plenty of coverage for it along the way this week with Clemson's final game in October. Feels kind of weird saying that on the 13th of the month. David, any final thoughts before we wrap up? And we got Swinney here in a couple hours, and we're going to be rocking and rolling for another ACC opponent.
Anxious to see what Coach Sweeney says, but it's going to be, hey, we played well, tough place to play, even though Clemson's won 16 in a row up there. Can't wait to see what he says. Everybody's going to be day to day on the injury report. We know that. So we just are looking forward to the rest of the week.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this episode of the Orange Crush podcast, you can see the banner flying across the bottom of your screen, ticking and thanking our sponsors, Herb Tyler and Clemson and Seneca Chick-fil-A, and Lisa Nason of Nason Accounting. I want to thank all they do to make this show possible, and to perp up David and I as podcast professionals. They really doing a good stuff there. But guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Orange Crush podcast. We appreciate all you guys have been doing. Subscribe to TigerNet on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. We may have some additional sites for you very soon. I'm doing the cartoonish, villainous hand rubbing to insinuate something is coming. But guys, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Have a great day and take care.